Jackie Mancuso. Today I am interviewing Dave Miller, who is the owner of a metaphysical shop near me in West Chicago. It's called The Journey's Path. And I found The Journey's Path a couple years ago when I was traveling from northern Illinois to Wheaton to go visit my dying aunt. And I would visit her about once a month, and I would continuously stop at The Journey's Path because it was right by her house. And I just really loved the store. There was something about it. And that was a few years ago, and it wasn't until December, November that I met Dave. I happened to stroll in the store for a class that was canceled, and Dave was there, and he's like, "Hey, you're Jackie Mancuso. You come up on my Facebook all the time." And Dave and I have crossed paths and become very good soul friends since then. And Dave is just an extremely interesting man. He has a lot of experience with the woo-woo world and whatnot. So today I want to hear about Dave, who he is, and where he comes from. So Dave, would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Yep, I am a lifelong truth seeker, and I'm interested in different healing modalities. I'm interested in helping people to awaken and ascend, prepare for the ascension. That's a lot of what we do here, but we also sell, crystals and gifts and things like that. I started becoming interested. Let's back up even further. I started questioning the mainstream religious concepts. And when I was about 6 years old or so, when I asked our Sunday school teachers questions, they would say, "Well, that's just the way it is. You have to believe." And I wouldn't accept that. So my brother and I decided we're not going to go to Sunday school anymore. So we would skip Sunday school. My dad would drop us off at church because he didn't go to church either. And we'd go in the front door and out the back door with our 25-cent offering and go down to the gas station and buy a soda pop and a candy bar and then go play in the woods for an hour and a half until my dad came back to pick us up. So, I was questioning the biblical interpretations of the established church ever since then. So I've been looking for the answers ever since then, and I'm still looking, still trying to find them. I mean, there's a lot. The universe is a very complex environment, so there's a lot to learn about the universe, and sometimes you're not going to learn about it until you're ready for it. If you try to pursue it, if you're not ready for it, it's not going to come to you. So I keep trying and I keep learning. So I've been into metaphysics for about 55 years. I started out as a teenager, back in the late 60s, early 70s, experimenting with psychotropic drugs. And I had some spiritual experiences while doing that. So, I always wanted to recapture that. So I kept trying all kinds of different psychedelics. And, after a few years, it had the opposite effect. I didn't have spiritual experiences. I had negative experiences. So after trying another 50 or 100 times to make sure that that's what was going on, I finally quit doing it. But and lately, it's psychedelics have become back in vogue. There's a lot of people that are seeking connection to a higher level of consciousness, and that's one way to do it. I just got back from Egypt a few weeks ago and was touring the ancient sites there, and there is evidence that the ancient Egyptians used psychedelics to connect with the higher consciousness.
Yeah.
There's I have a couple photos of goddesses that have a pot leaf above their head, and it looks like a toad at their feet. So, and then there's I think it's a temple of Hathor that all the pillars in that temple had mushrooms carved into the top of them. So that's another indication that they used plant medicine to achieve some of their higher levels of consciousness, just like we're doing today. And I think we're remembering the ancient secrets. So we're going back to that because we knew that's how you can achieve that. So
I think it's interesting that you talked about, back in the 60s and 70s, you would use psychedelics to experience life, to experience a spiritual awakening until it didn't work anymore. And that's kind of a
Right.
testament to the way that I live my life, that everything is a tool. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. And it seems like you got the use out of the tool, and then the tool said, Dave, you're good for now. And then it came back around when it was time to use the tool again.
Right. Right. Well, I tried some mushrooms a couple of years ago, and I had a difficult time clearing some stuff that I had to clear. But I think I accomplished that, and I'm good as far as mushrooms go. But there are some other options that I'm looking to pursue. MDMA and maybe some DMT, maybe some Bufo. So we'll see.
I'm actually, when is it? On Monday, I'm leaving for Peru, and I'm going to an ayahuasca retreat. So I am
Cool.
beyond excited. I had my first experience in September. Ayahuasca DMT, for those who aren't familiar, I had it in September. It was an extremely life-altering event. And I'm excited to be able to go to the source, to literally go to Peru to experience this again. So
Yeah.
I'll report back to you.
Oh, cool. How long is it going to be? I mean, how many days are going to be there?
The retreat itself is 10 days, and there's a variety of plant medicines that we'll be doing. I think we're going to do ayahuasca like 2 or 3 times. San Pedro is another medicine, a sweat lodge, I think. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just kind of flowing with it. I don't know what to expect. I'm feeling called to it, so I'm going.
Yep. If it's calling to you, you got to do it. You can't ignore the call.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring up the Nazca lines, because you were the first one who told me about the Nazca mummies. And this is where you were deciding if you wanted to go to Peru or Egypt. And for those
Right.
who aren't familiar, the Nazca mummies were founded in Nazca, Peru. And they look like what's on Dave's shirt. They're mummies that have these big eyes and 3 fingers. And they look like aliens. And just last week, I was in Florida, and I found a Nazca line stone at a metaphysical shop. And I had never heard of Nazca,
Wow.
Nazca lines, any of this stuff. So all of this is starting to unfold in my life, which I think is super interesting. So maybe I'm the part of you that was supposed to go to Peru, and you were supposed to go to Egypt.
There you go. There you go. So when you're in Peru, maybe you should go check out the Nazca lines.
We're not going to be anywhere near there, but who knows? Who knows? We have a handful of
Well,
days just to play, so.
yeah. Well, you can't see them, or you don't know what they are until you see them from the air. So if you're far away, you could still fly over there,
We could. I might have to look
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
So I want to know what brought you to opening a metaphysical shop. That's like a huge step that I'm sure a lot of people in the spiritual community have thought about. One day I'll be this big person. To me, having your own metaphysical shop seems like a pretty big deal.
I don't think it is myself. What got me interested in opening a shop was I was going to this place. It's a yoga studio yoga and Reiki studio in Bloomingdale, and I learned all my Reiki classes there, and was attending yoga a couple times a week. And I thought that And they had sound baths and meditation circles, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool to provide that for the community. And so in the back of my mind, I thought that I wanted to do that someday. But I was traveling a lot with my job. I mean, I was on the road all the time. And I thought after I retire, I'm going to open this place up. But my wife and I went to Thailand with the Vibrational Sound Association to work with the elephants. And we had lunch with a couple that was in our group. And they said that they had been wanting to open up a metaphysical shop. They were ready to retire. And my wife knew that I had been talking about it, but I don't think she thought I was all that serious because, I'm a pie in the sky kind of guy sometimes. But when she found out how passionate I was about it, then she took it seriously. So when we came back to Chicago, I went back to this project I was working on in Little Rock, and she called this phone number that was on the sign out in front of the building, says, spaces for rent or whatever. And we lived in this area at that time for about 15 years and saw that sign, I don't know how many times, never really acknowledged it or cared about it. But she called the guy, and we found a place that we thought was suitable. It was reasonable, very reasonable rent wise. So I'm certain that it was synchronistically presented to her by one of our guys, hers or mine, I don't know which, but and the rest they say is history, as they say is history. So we've been here for a little over 6 years. We're into our 7th year now, and we've expanded 2 times. And I'm waiting for this pediatric place to move out so I can expand even further, take over the whole shopping center.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a metaphysical mall.
I love that. I love that. And you guys, you're like the Cheers of metaphysical shops. You have events going on all day, every day. It seems like every weekend you can walk in at any time and there's something, some event, some healing circle that you can join.
Yeah.
I really love the community aspect of your place.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We try to provide some free stuff for people that can't afford all the stuff that we have going on. So like the third weekend of the month is what I call our free weekend. We have a free metaphysical discussion group, a free drumming circle, Reiki share on Sundays for those who are attuned to Reiki. And then then Don Santucci, our doctor of psychology, after the metaphysical discussion group and before the drumming circle, she's offering some of her services for free. She does vibrational sound therapies with tuning forks. She does emotion code and body code, hypnosis, QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, which was Dolores Cannon's method of taking you under and taking you all over the place, past lives, maybe even future lives, and life between lives. Interesting stuff. So yeah, we do have a lot of stuff going on here. It's we have room to do more, and we are doing more. We just again had fits and starts on our area yoga, but now we started again with our third instructor. She's had 2 sessions now, and she seems to be pretty good at what she does. I've heard good comments about it. I haven't done it yet because of, I had surgery on my arm, so
yes,
that's my excuse anyway.
There's so much change and it seems like it's always expanding, it's always flowing. And in order to, manage that space, there has to be a deep love for what you do. So why is it that you wanted this metaphysical shop? Why is it that you want to guide people on their path?
because I can. But I feel a calling to help people. And there are a lot of people out there that don't know what's going on. They're awakening, they feel the energies, but they can be lost. They can be overwhelmed by all the woo woo, the psychic stuff, and the synchronicities that goes on. It's just amazing uh, that there's this kind of coordination in the universe that we never noticed before. So as we awaken, we become aware of that, and as we become aware of it, more of it happens. So just pay attention. Pay attention to the signs, and as you know, and the signs will lead you to where you are supposed to go. And if you don't pay attention, universe will slap you upside the head at once at some time and get your attention. I've had my head slapped up quite a few times.
I talk about that all the time. I'm like a masochist for life lessons. The universe, give it to me, smack me, I got it, put me on the right path. I was going to
Yep.
ask, did you have anyone supporting you when you went through your awakening, or were you kind of on your own?
Well, one of my sisters and my brother. My brother was into drugs like I was. My sister was not, but she became interested when she started seeing spirits. It freaked her out because every place she's moved to, they followed her there, and she was and still is freaked out 50 some years later. She said she's not, but I know she is. But and then we had a couple close friends that we experienced some of these spiritual awakenings, through the psychedelics. But there wasn't anybody else that you could talk to about it because, everybody thought you were crazy, except for the people that had experienced it themselves. So we awakened at an early age compared to a lot of people today. And I think we did that for a reason. Pardon me?
About how old were you?
Probably about 15.
Okay, yeah.
And that was, it was 1970. But there was an awakening going then. People were saying, awakening to the fallacies that the church teaches, the fallacies that the governments try to foist upon us. Mainstream education. I think it was Mark Twain said that your real education starts after you leave school. And I agree with that. You have to unlearn a bunch of stuff that you've learned in order to learn the truth. And if there's any one thing that I am a truth seeker. And the truth comes in weird forms. But a lot of times you don't really figure that out until you get past a certain point, and then you start learning more and more advanced theories that if you were to learn that at the very beginning, you'd have thought that's crazy, and you wouldn't believe it. It's the same thing that happened to Dolores Cannon when she was regressing people into past lives. It started out pretty weird. She wrote a series of books called The Convoluted Universe. Volume 1 is pretty weird. Volume 2 is even weirder. Volume 3, they tell her the reason it's so weird now is because you're ready for it. We weren't going to, give you this stuff before you're ready for it. So by the time you got down to the fifth volume of the Convoluted Universe, it got really, really weird. I mean, the universe is a very fascinating place. Yeah, and they don't teach you this stuff in school or at church or anything like that.
Right. And I wonder if this might be difficult to put into words, but what is it that tells you that something is truth? How do you know that this is what is real and what we were taught is unreal? How do you filter that?
Well, through the heart and through the third eye, through your intuition. But your truth may not be the same as my truth, because your understanding of life and your level of advancement is different than mine. So I may have at one time believed what you believe now, or you may have believed what I believe now, but you're past that, so
Yeah.
it's all interesting.
You
I
know,
call
I
it
think
FM,
FM.
freaking magic.
Freaking magic. I was just gonna say, and you're known as the magician. I don't know if you just saw that crack of lightning that lit up my whole room. There's a huge thunderstorm going on right now. Like this kind of synchronicity, I think we are creating magic through this conversation right here. And
It could be.
I so appreciate that you said that your truth is different than my truth. And this is something that I've been diving deeper into over the last year specifically. Everything is true. And that's why I don't waste my time arguing my point. This is my truth. This is how I'm going to live. You have your truth. You're going to live the way you're going to live. And I wish that more
Right.
people could understand that concept. It would make world peace. It would literally make
Right.
world peace.
Yep. Well, everybody's at a different level of spiritual development, and it's it's like the Kundalini is considered a snake that's coiled up at your root chakra, and as you develop spiritually, it starts uncoiling and goes up through all your chakras till it hits your crown, and then you're kind of wide open to the higher levels. So everybody's at a different place on their path. We live in a 3D world. Some of us live in the 4D world, and we go back and forth between 3D and 4D. We got 1 foot in 3D, 1 foot in 4D, or whatever. But that each dimension has its own octaves, own levels of octaves. So some of us that are in 3D might be like, hitting their head on the 4D ceiling, and other people are just totally entrenched in. And those are the people that seem to drive on the expressways or, shop at Walmart. I'm just regular people,
Right.
I call them Walmartians because some of them are pretty darn weird.
Walmart.
But, yeah. So if you pay attention, you'll notice that there are a lot of 3D stuff going on in the world that we just really don't care about. We don't pay attention to because it's not ours to worry about. We're worried about advancing ourselves, advancing our communities, advancing our friends, increasing in our vibration, our frequency. The Earth itself is increasing in frequency. If you've been paying attention to the Schumann resonance recently, it's off the charts. And has been off and on for years. So the Earth itself is going through changes. It's going to end up ascending to a fourth dimension at some point. It could be tomorrow. It could be 100 years from now. But we just came out of the age of Pisces, and we're going into and are into the age of Aquarius. But each one of those ages are 2,160 years. So it's not like, we cut it off at one day, like December 21st, 2012. That's the date that's referred to because that's the end of the Mayan calendar. But, it could be 100 years into it before you actually are fully into the next zodiac sign. So we are just, 2012 was what? 13 years ago. We're just at the very beginning of coming into the age of Aquarius. So I don't know that anybody, I'm sure there are other people out there that have an idea when the ascension is going to happen, but just like anything else, the future is not locked in because everybody has free will. So we can change our timelines. My timeline has just really been holy cow for the last 4 months. It's been a wild ride. I want to show you my before and after aura photos from before I went to Egypt and after. Now this photo is these are the same colors that I've had every time I've had my aura photo taken for the last, 5.5, 6 years. So when I came back from Egypt, our general manager says, you ought to take your aura photo again, see if it's changed. Well, this is what it was, and this is what it was when I came back. It's a completely different color.
Yeah.
And I talked to a woman that went to London on her way back home. She was in our group, and afterwards, I posted these on our WhatsApp group page, and she said that one of her granddaughters has been able to see auras since she was 5, and she's now 8. So she asked her, "Can you see what color my aura is?" And she looked at her head and she said, "It's turquoise." So this kind of looks like turquoise to me. It's a little bit lighter than what shows on the camera. It looks like really blue, but it looks like a turquoise color to me. And other people after the tour said that they're still experiencing shifts and increases in energies or whatever. I had a reading, a psychic reading before I went, and she was telling me that there's going to be a major energy shift in the middle of February. I said, "Well, that's when I'm going to Egypt," and she said, "You're kidding me. That's where you need to be when this happens." She used a more colorful language, but so she also said that there was a portal out in the cosmos that was meant for me to access. She said it's very bright. She asked if I worked with any star people, and I said, "Yeah, the Pleiadians." And she said, "Well, out beyond the Pleiades is this portal, this doorway." And she said it's very bright. She couldn't see inside. She said, "There's somebody in there, but I can't see who it is because it's so bright." He says, "You need to go through that doorway." And she said, I can't, I'm not supposed to." So I tried when I was meditating, and my monkey mind would not let me get anywhere near there. So I asked Dr. Dawn Santucci, who works here, the psychologist, to take me there via hypnosis, and she did. And I went inside. I couldn't see who was in there because it was so bright, but I could feel the energy of the person or entity that was in there, and I recognized this being as being Thoth, the ibis-headed Egyptian deity,
Mm-hmm.
who has come to me in 4 different readings. And I always wondered why. It's not like I was making it up, because it was other people telling me about him, not me telling them. But apparently, according to one of my meditations, apparently I was a priest in Atlantis under Thoth. But I I was communicating with him telepathically in this bright room. And I don't remember everything that he said, but I know he told me that that I had a role to play in this energy shift, and that I'll know what to do when time comes. Okay, whatever that means. So there's a guy from Brazil that was in our group. He was in his mid-30s. He and his wife owned a farm in Brazil, and he has been following the Mayan astrology, which is, I think, based on a Mayan calendar. So, you give them your birth date just like you do in an astrological reading. But he did that for me, and the results were pretty interesting. One of the things that it said was that, everybody has their own unique kin, K-I-N, which is a combination of their light frequencies and their sound frequencies. So when I was reading this, I thought, well, that's what we need to do. Everybody's got their own kin. Everybody's got their own tones. Everybody's got their own light. I said, when we go to these sacred places, everybody needs to tone at their own frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to the Great Pyramid, they don't want you to do any of that. They don't want you to ohm. They don't want you to tone. They don't want you to meditate. I don't think they want you to activate anything. But one of the women from our group paid the guard $100, and we could do whatever the hell we wanted to. So we were meditating and toning and ohming, and other people that were coming into the king's chamber saw what we were doing, and they started doing it too. So it was really cool. You could feel the energy just raising in that room, and it was just amazing. And then after we left the Great Pyramid, we had an hour's worth of exclusive time in between the paws of the Sphinx and all around it, actually. So we went there, and at the open end of the paws, when we first got there, some people were leaning against the paws in between the toes and were toning. So I did that, but I was ohming, and I could hear other voices to my left, where nobody was to my left. Everybody was to my right. And I could hear them blending with my voice, and it was just, I was kind of freaking. I said, am I having a flashback or what? But I went to the guy from Brazil, and I said, I heard these other voices with me when I was ohming, and he went over to the other paw, and he leaned back between a couple of the toes, and I walked over there while he was doing it, and I could hear those voices joining him too, which was pretty cool, pretty incredible. Between the paws, in the front, there was a small stone altar, and in front of the altar was a stone bench. And some of the women were sitting on the bench, and they were toning, and they sounded wonderful. They sounded, like a choir. Some of the other people in the group were lined up along the arms of the Sphinx, and they were meditating. I walked to the front of the Sphinx, stood in front of the stele at the front of the paws or the legs, and they just sounded incredible. It was amplified down to between the legs, and it was bouncing off of the stele back to me, and so then I started ohming along with them, and then when my voice blended in, I thought, holy shit, this just sounds like an angelic choir, seriously. And I started becoming very emotional, and you could just feel the energy just being lifted. So this is the day that the 7 planets were lined up together. What a coincidence. Yeah.
Definitely nothing
And
more.
then we had, yeah. And then we had a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, and who knows what the hell else was going on. It's a unique time. People have been feeling the energy. But I hear a lot of people saying, boy, it's really screwed up out there. And it is.
There's an immense amount of change. I don't want to make this an astrology lesson. I do have a separate video about the beginning of the end, but within 2-3 years, all of the outer planets are changing signs, which the outer planets change signs like once a decade. And for all of them to line up three in a row, it's a big shift from a lot of density, a lot of earth energy. We're moving into fire and air, which are speedy. A lot more innovation is coming, a lot more truth is coming, a lot of motion is coming. And even some of the outer planets, I'm not versed in that type of astrology, but outer planets that are new to being discovered, they have orbits of like tens of thousands of years. They are now shifting signs. So there's an immense wave of change coming over everything. And the fact
Yep.
that, you were meant to be placed in Egypt to have that experience because you followed your path, because you followed your destiny. And everyone
Right.
else who's listening, I feel like I know that I listen to people tell these stories and I get a little jealous. Like, when is my time going to come? When do I get to have that cool experience? And
It's coming.
exactly, the more we all just walk our path and flow with whatever life is giving us,
Right.
these things happen when we don't want them to happen.
Yeah, tell me about it. But, looking back, it was all part of the, what needed to happen.
Hmm.
So even though it was difficult to live through, I think in the end it's for the best in my situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it takes some strength and bravery and courage in order to go through these big changes because you
Right.
weren't ready before, so these things couldn't have occurred. You had to build yourself up in order to, let go of all
Yeah.
the things you have to let go of.
Right. Well, I think, the plan was all the all along was this energy shift that I had to prepare for. And that's where all the changes were coming in, that I had to uh, dispel some things. I had to free myself from some things
Hmm.
and things that you're used to, that you feel comfortable in, and some things you don't feel so comfortable in that you're kind of, happy to evolve past it.
Sure.
But and it is evolution too. It's part of your evolving self, your energy, your spiritual growth. So
And it's all
I've got
following your heart, knowing what the truth is for you.
right. Yeah. Well, I have for years uh, told the universe, put me where I'm needed, put me where um, I can do the most good. And when I was working on the road, I could see so many instances where the universe put me there for a reason, either to learn from somebody or to teach somebody. And I'm still trusting in the universe to unfold my purpose.
It's ever
So
changing. It's ever unfolding. It's ever changing because
it
as
is.
you evolve, your purpose is going to, tweak a little bit. It's going to be
Yep.
slightly different.
Yep. As you become more advanced spiritually, you can take on more responsibility. You meet people that are ready for whatever you have to teach them or help them through. It's all the time. I see people coming in here that said, "I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but I was driving past and I thought, well, I got to stop in there for one reason or another." And then they meet somebody that's in the store
Hmm.
and they realize, oh, the reason I've stopped here is so I can meet you, and then they become friends or whatever. But it just happens all the time. The synchronicity is amazing.
I want to
Very
bring
cool
this
stuff.
I want to bring this back a little bit to the concept of ascension, because you mentioned yourself. I don't know when it's coming. It could be tomorrow. It could be 100 years from now.
Mhm.
And with all of this talk about following our own path, I'm of the full belief that ascension is completely personal. And you might ascend, and you and I might still be talking to each other, and you're way up here
Right.
in the 12D, and I'm, still in this 3-4D. So I think that's a concept that's not talked about in the community. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are waiting for some hero to show up and raise the vibration of the whole world. I think it's
That would be
important
me.
for us to say that again.
I said, that would be me.
Well, thank you
And
for your
you.
service. Yeah. But we're doing it
And thank you for
for,
yours.
thank you. We have to work on ourselves and love ourselves because we are all one. So it's not
Right.
working on ourselves and loving ourselves in a selfish way. It's so that I can be my best to shine for you so you can
Right.
find your best and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, when you're loving others, you're loving yourself because you're all part of the whole, right? But if you're looking disparagingly at somebody, with judging them or whatever, you're also judging yourself because again, that's you, right? So it's hard to keep that in mind because we're human,
Yeah.
and not all the time are we in 4D. We go back and forth, I think sometimes, but that's some of the lessons that we need to learn to get out of 3D.
It's part of the whole human experience. We came here to
Yep.
learn. We came here to experience every emotion, not just joy and bliss. We came here
Yep.
to experience the heart-wrenching pains of life.
I think some of us are here just to help other people with the ascension. Uh, some of us have memories of ancient um methods, modalities, technologies that we're remembering now and bringing back uh, into play. So there are those that are very, very old souls. They may have come from other dimensions to help in the planetary ascension. Dolores Cannon wrote a book called The Three Waves of Volunteers.
Mhm.
Yeah, my generation would be the first wave, which are people that really didn't know what the hell was going on, right? Because you'd forget about it. I read someplace that as you travel down the birth canal, that's when you do your forgetting. So I'm wondering, and I gotta look into this further, is if you were a C-section baby, if you were able to remember some of the past lives when you were anywhere from 2 to 5 years old, because a lot of kids have those memories, until society tells them that, no, that's not the way it is. Don't listen to them, but anyway. Um,
That would be an interesting
so
search to conduct about C-section versus.
yeah. Well, I have one of my grandsons was a C-section, and he told my daughter one time when he was about 3 years old, and they're driving down the road. He said, "I remember when my daddy and I were brothers, and we were playing, whatever." And he would describe this whole scene of him and his brother playing, and he said that was his daddy. It was that's about the only thing I think that he did say, but he went on for quite a while. She was trying not to lead him, but
Yeah, that's
um,
amazing.
yeah, interesting.
I don't think that there's a coincidence with your Egypt experience with the toning because of all the vibrational work that you do. That's the one thing
Right.
that I know you for is the vibrational healer. Do you think that that was on purpose? Do you feel like your path brought you through all of those sound healing modalities to bring you to this Egypt moment?
Oh, yeah, that is.
So you knew what to
I,
do
well, I didn't know I knew what to do until it went boom.
until you knew.
Um, yeah. So a friend of mine, he died a couple of years ago, but we used to exchange vibrational sound therapies together, and he was pretty intuitive. He was an Akashic record consultant teacher. He would teach how to access the Akashic records. So he was always in his own records. But I was giving him a treatment one day, and when he got up off the table, he said, um, "I had a vision of you teaching me this uh, in ancient Egypt." I thought, well, that's pretty darn cool. because it's one of those things. Once I heard about it, didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to do it, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now I try to teach people about it. So anyway, it's pretty cool. When I was in Egypt, I took like 2,000 photographs of all the hieroglyphics and all that. But I noticed, like the second week, it seemed like every temple we went into and almost every room we went into in these temples had hieroglyphics that looked like a grounding bowl, a singing bowl with an ankh in the center, a symbol for eternal life. And on each side of it was what I interpret as a tuning fork. It had a fork on the one end, and it was a long staff with an angled protrusion, I guess, at the top. And I read someplace that they placed the thing at the top someplace on their head, and then the vibration awakens them or something. I don't know. But I got the idea that every room, and they also had these little hieroglyphics that look like water ripples, but I'm thinking that's sound waves.
Sure.
So it seems to me that they're telling you that this temple is activated by a particular frequency, that you sound with whatever instrument, that you have, and that each, now I haven't counted the number of little peaks in the squiggly lines to see if they differ in frequency.
Okay. Yeah.
Yet I haven't done it yet. There's a lot of studying I got to do for these hieroglyphics. Yet I bought a 750-page dictionary for hieroglyphics that I have to get into eventually. But so I think it was eye-opening in as much as I believe that they did use psychedelics to access the higher levels of consciousness. I've done that myself, and it makes sense that's what they did. But it also accessing higher levels of consciousness through vibration. Like I said, I have a lot of research to do, but I have a lot of other things to do first.
It's all just your journey. You seem like someone who's constantly learning and exploring. You've done plenty of research to get you to where you are. And
Yeah.
one book that you've referenced multiple times, and other people at the Journey's Path, and it keeps coming up in my awareness, is the secret, the ancient secrets of the flower
Ancient
of life.
Secret of the Flower of Life. Yep.
Yeah. What is there? What's in that book, and why do I need to read it?
Sacred geometry.
Okay.
And a lot of Egyptian stuff. There's 2 volumes. Yeah. Yep. Well, when I had my first Akashic record reading was with one of my Reiki teachers, and she's the first one that referenced Thoth. He's the one, he showed up. And she says, I'm not sure why he's here. She said, I see this Egypt, like it looks like an Egyptian statue sitting on your right hand shoulder, or sitting next to you, standing next to you. She said, and he's blue. I said, do you know his name? She said, yeah, Thoth. She says, I don't know why he's here, other than the fact that he's the one that introduced Egypt to the written word and mathematics and culture. So she said, maybe he's here, maybe he's blue because he wants to help me formulate the words. Like your throat chakra is blue.
Yeah, and your aura is now blue, Dave.
There you go. So later on she said, he wants you to learn numbers. I said, you mean like numerology? And she said, no, he wants you to learn sacred geometry. And I thought, well, shit, I didn't do very well with geometry in school. So, and I asked her how long my ex or my wife and I have been together, and she said it was my second life in Atlantis.
Okay.
And we were pod mates, whatever that means. We knew how to bend electricity. I kind of know how to do that now,
In the
not
3D.
her. Yeah. Well, with radio frequency energy, you can bend that around the earth. You can bounce it off the moon. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I think back then, there was probably wireless electricity utilizing maybe the pyramids. There are pyramids all around the world. There's like over 10,000 of them that they've discovered on every continent. Potential pyramids on Mars, potential pyramids on the moon. I mean, they're ancient structures. Anyway, so later on, she looks again. She goes, "Oh, he's back," and then she looked way up like this. She said, "And he's really, really tall." A couple of years later, I read that blue avians are fifth density entities, and that fifth density entities, the males are like 40 to 50 feet tall, and the females are like 35 to 40 or 45 feet tall. And when I told her that, when I told my Reiki teacher that, her jaw dropped open. She had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'm a fifth density blue avian.
It's your unveiling party.
Yeah. Maybe it's just a reflection off my head.
So what do you think is coming for you now that you've had this enlightening experience? You have a lot of things shifting in your life. What's on the way?
I don't know. I'm going to let the universe direct me. I'm just going to follow what the synchronicities are, follow what the signs are, and like I normally do. And we'll see. I'm here to help people ascend, raise their vibration, and prepare for the ascension. A lot of people don't realize that there's an ascension coming. According to the books, the series of books, The Law of One, there's a harvest of souls that comes every 75,000 years. And in order for you to be considered harvestable, you need to be over 50% in service to others rather than 50% or more in service to self. So a lot of people out there that are completely ignorant of metaphysics or spirituality or whatever. Even the people that go to church, I don't think they fully understand that that this time is coming, and that they need to. They shouldn't just be good on Sundays, right? You got to be good at at least 50% of the time, and serve others. So
What
I
does
think
that what does that mean, the harvesting of souls? What is that?
the ascension it kind of reminds me of the biblical description of the rapture. The people that are ready to ascend or advance spiritually move from 3D into 4D. And some people that are here are actually from the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and maybe even the seventh dimension that are helping, even just by their presence here, the vibration that they emit, helping raise the vibration of the planet and the planet's occupants. So
To me, the
um,
word harvesting, that sounds like some Anunnaki shit.
I know. Well, and this was channeled by a young lady that was channeling an entity that called themselves Ra, a sixth density social memory complex. So to me, that means that a group of souls that have attained um, coherent consciousness together, right? It's kind of like the Aborigines. They can access each other's experiences and um, thought patterns. So they're the ones that said that you have to be over 50% of service to others to qualify for the harvest. Now, the last time, 75,000 years or so ago, there were hardly any of us graduated. So those of us that are earthbound souls that are alive right now are flunkies. We flunked third grade over and over and over again. So we've got this last chance until the ascension. Now, those that do not ascend are supposed to be destined to go to another third density planet someplace else in the universe, because the third density Earth planet will no longer be habitable. So
Interesting.
the fourth density planet and a third density planet are present at the same time in the same space. And I can see, I can tell the difference between third density and fourth density situations, people, whatever.
Mhm.
If you watch a lot of TV, you watch a lot of news, you're probably stuck in 3D, because that stuff will lower your vibration big time. All the lies that they tell you, everything. That's why they call it programming, right?
Mhm.
Because they're programming you. So
On the tell lie vision.
yeah, this is true. Yes. So there are some good things on television. Not many, but there are programs that will open your eyes to some of the realities out there. The one of them that I like, and as a matter of fact, one of the stars of this TV show was our host through Gaia in Egypt, William Henry. He um, he was on the Ancient Alien show. Where was I going with this? Lost my train of thought.
There are some good programs out there.
Yes, well, Ancient Aliens is one. It's a very thought-provoking show. Every once in a while, you'll say, "Oh, come on, not everything is Ancient Aliens," but a lot of it is. I'm sure. I mean, you look at the evidence, and we're still discovering evidence. Like Göbekli Tepe is a settlement that was 12,000 years, and now they've discovered a Karahan Tepe, which is just a couple miles from Göbekli Tepe, that they think is even older than that. Whereas before, the general way of thinking was that civilization started 6,000 years ago, but
Right.
they found evidence that it's at least 12,000 years old. And actually, they found evidence elsewhere that mankind was around a couple million years ago. At least hominids were, and there were several 100,000 years ago. So it's not just a 6,000-year-old civilization that we're dealing with. We're finding things. There's gold mines in Africa that the archaeologists claim are 200,000 years old, mining gold. So you got to have some sort of an advanced civilization to successfully be able to do that. So that's a good show to get started on Ancient Aliens. I like paranormal, caught on camera. Also, if you like, spooks and all that too, and UFOs and aliens and what have you. The alien part of it is interesting because we are all one, right? We do CE5s, which is a Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It stands for human-initiated contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. So that's another one that is thought-provoking.
And I would
When
even
you get out there.
say that the last hour we spent together was thought-provoking, right? This would be one of those
Yes.
good programs
Yep.
on the YouTubes.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, as we come to a close here, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom. I'm sure that this talk has inspired a bunch of people, and I would love to see in the comments what you guys have gotten from this chat. And Dave, I do this to all of my interviewees. I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit. If you could give one message to all of humanity, what do you think the world needs to hear from you right now?
We need to love one another. That's the key to everything. John Lennon said it best. All you need is love.
I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you so much. If you guys want to follow Dave or The Journey's Path on Facebook, I have the links in the show notes. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we close?
No, just thank you for having me. I enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon, Dave.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.